Well, hi. Today is Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. I'm Todd Studer, and this is Morning Coffee. Yesterday, I told you that we had some special interviews coming up, and that is because this week is First Responders Week, and the Masons in Council Bluffs put on a free lunch for all first responders yesterday, and they invited me down to do some interviews with some of the folks in the area. And so we're going to be bringing you those interviews this week. And today we have a great interview with Council Bluffs Fire Chief Justin James. And that is coming up in just a bit. Also, you may have seen online that it is official. It is out. We are going to be doing a live webcast of the Council Bluffs Celebrate CB Parade that is happening this Saturday. I know that there's a lot of entries in the parade. And my good friend Sheila Jenkinson from the Growing Small Town Nebraska podcast is coming over to co-host with me. This is going to be tons of fun. Sheila is also ex-radio, just like I am, and she has announced several parades, just like I have. So we're going to have tons of fun with this, and I was thrilled when she said yes, that she would come over and co-host with me. Also, Kyle Ranney from Tailslate Agency is working all of the cameras. He's doing the videography for this, and we are looking forward to it. So it is a live webcast. If you look, you can see whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're watching this on Facebook. We have live events planned. We're going to be going on at 10 on Saturday, 10 in the morning, by the way. They don't run the parade at night in Council Bluffs. And then the parade is anticipated to start right at 10:30. So we hope that you come out and visit and see the parade. And two things can happen with this. I mean, one, you can pull us up on your smartphone, just like this, and listen to the commentary, even watch some of the things that are going on. Or if you are at the parade, you can go back and watch it later. Yeah, we will be live, but then it still exists afterwards. That's the best part of doing things on the web. So if you can't make it to the parade, and if you know of someone, maybe a former resident of Council Bluffs, or if you have family that you know would love to see their loved ones who are going to be in the parade, this would be a great way to do it. So share the link with them, and we would love to have them watch along with us. So all of that is coming up this Saturday, the Celebrate CB Parade. We go on at 10, and the parade is starting at 10:30. All right, we're going to be bringing you that interview with Fire Chief Justin James coming up very, very soon. First, I wanted to remind you that technology should work for you, not against you. At ThinkSpace IT, they provide expert IT solutions to keep your business running smoothly and securely. From cybersecurity and cloud services to network management and tech support, they simplify IT so you can focus on what matters most. Stay protected, stay connected, stay ahead. Visit ThinkSpaceIT.com. Big thank you to another of our sponsors, Bryce Taylor and GLI Insurance Group, a locally and family-owned independent insurance group. They've been helping people find the best possible plan for them for over a decade. Bryce has an office just up the road from Council Bluffs in Crescent, Iowa. He's also the founder of the Facebook group Council Bluffs Food Lovers, which those numbers just continue to grow. And you see wonderful food reviews in the Council Bluffs Food Lovers page on Facebook. So if you haven't joined yet, you really should. Bryce and I go out periodically and do a food review for the Morning Coffee Show. And we have another one coming up very, very soon. So I'm still crossing my fingers that this one will be breakfast. I'm hoping. Maybe I can make that happen. If you're feeling stuck in uncertainty, conflict, or miscommunication, The Spiral of Accountability by local Council Bluffs author Carol Horner is your guide to breaking free from the fog that clouds decision-making and relationships. Learn how to recognize negative cycles, shift your mindset, and build a culture of clarity and collaboration at work, at home, and in life. If you're ready to spiral up, get your copy on Amazon or visit spiralofaccountability.com. Start your journey to a healthier, more productive team. Back as we continue with First Responders Week, and this is Justin James, Fire Chief for Council Bluffs Fire Department. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for your years of dedication to the community and everything that you've done here so far and continue to do. I know that it's an ongoing thing, and you deal with a lot of things in your position that
probably separate from just the day-to-day operations of what your staff does.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, the mayor asked me what I do one time, and I said there's about 30% of it actually is running the fire department. There's probably 30% of it that's selling it to the public, making them understand what the fire service does here. And then there's a big portion of my time right now that involves trying to work on the homeless issues in the community. They would boggle you the amount of time the police chief and the fire chief spend in meetings. I have a meeting actually directly following this, working on homeless issues. It's a complicated problem. I think everyone's frustrated with what's going on, and we're trying to find real solutions. The problem is some of those solutions are bigger than a city government. They're government issues, but they can't be fixed by a local city. And it has to do with laws and funding and how we've treated addiction and mental health in our state and how they are funding it and lack thereof. And so I think we've gotten to kind of a place where we're doing it on the back end instead of the front end. And sometimes that takes good laws and hard decisions. And so I spent a lot of time on homeless, to be honest. And that very little of my job, when I first became chief, I mean, everyone would think the fire chief is the guy out there or girl that's out there running emergencies, and that's just not relative in a department our size. It's the vast majority of my job has very little to do with the fire service. I have 5 subordinates directly under me that are the 3 line assistant chiefs that run the 3 shifts, and then 1 that runs the fire marshal, and then 1 that is our admin chief, kind of handles and keeps everyone pulling in the right direction. But a lot of my time is spent in other types of issues in the city.
How long, and maybe you had a good understanding about what was going to be required of this before you became chief, but was that an eye-opening experience that you started to see some of these things as, this is now part of my day-to-day?
You know, I think I had a pretty good understanding of it when I came into the position. I was fortunate. I had a very unique career path within the fire department. I was hired in 1999 and then promoted to engineer in the early 2000s, and then in 2008-ish, I'd say 2007, 2008, I was going to be promoted as a captain. At the time, we were struggling a little bit in our fire marshal's office and keeping employees committed down there. And so it was probably 2007 going into 2008 when I was actually promoted. And I went to the fire chief and we had a discussion about that position because I didn't know if I was going to take it or not. And I told him that I would take the position if he would invest some money and send me to a law enforcement academy. And we were having some problems with arson, and we weren't being real successful at prosecuting them as high a level as we should have. And no one was really committed to it, because I get it. If you're a law enforcement officer and you work in the Council Bluffs Police Department's like detective division, you are way overworked.
Right.
You have just case after case after case, so you get a really complicated arson case where maybe the only people that are out is the insurance company. You know, I'd go work the child sex issues before I work that. You know,
right, it's almost like a triage kind of thing.
Yeah, it's 100%
you got to put your
triage.
focus on where it's going to make the most difference.
And so I went to a law enforcement academy, spent some time just doing basically law enforcement stuff, to be honest. And early on in my career, I became the union president in I think 2004. So in about 2010, 2009, I realized that at some point those two roles might conflict. And so I gave up being the union president, but I got a level of education while I was the union president that not very many people get, because I spent a lot of time with the fire chief, spent a lot of time in City Hall, a lot of time with HR, a lot of time reading labor law and understanding why the civil service exists, and all things that kind of prepare you to be the chief. And I didn't really know it at the time, and I really had no ambition to do it. So in, I think, 2013, I was up to be promoted to assistant chief, and I was the law enforcement officer for the fire department. Worked a lot of cases with Council Bluffs Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, state, the Inspector General's office. We I really thought the chief was going to just move out the current fire marshal and leave me in place, because then if I was promoted, we would have been the same rank. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, he's like, no, I'm sending you out on the line. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, it makes no sense. We're being really, really successful at doing what I'm doing. And he had obviously a different vision of where I was headed. I didn't know it. So I went out on the line for like a year and a half. He had some conversations with me about applying to be the chief. And I'd never really thought about it up until that point. But I remember being a young union president and dealing with the chief and the mayor a lot, and my brother telling me, if you really want to make a change, you have to be the boss. And that kind of hit home, and the conversations that the previous Chief Byers had with me, I guess it made me consider it. And so I threw my name in the hat, and that's how I ended up there. I think when I got there, I had a pretty good idea what the job was. I knew that I was going to approach it differently, that I knew that it was more than just being the fire chief. It was about being part of a bigger team in the city, trying to get the city going in the right direction. And that's more my forte. I get it, you know. I loved running fire scenes, but there was a part of me that I was like, I really love doing the law enforcement stuff, because I always told people I had the coolest job in the world. Like, I worked for the fire department. I did mostly law enforcement issues, and then I also ran like our special teams, our hazmat, our W&D hazmat team, worked on confined space and high angle rescue stuff. So any one day at work, I could pick and choose like the coolest things about the fire service and law enforcement on any day, and I got to pick. And so the chief trusted me to just go out and do what was right, and didn't have a lot of supervision of how I handled the law enforcement cases. Obviously, I work with the county attorney's office and CBPD, but then I also got the opportunity to go train our personnel on, WMD issues, whether it be in radioactive material, nerve agents, chemical agents. So I had a cool job. So when I took the chief job, it was like, what did I do? What did I do? But it's an opportunity to lead probably the brightest group, some of the brightest people we have in our community, to be honest, because the fire service gets to pick kind of the best of the best. Like, that is probably the biggest thing we have going for us. There's lots of kids that want to be firemen. And so anytime we hire, we get to pick, the next little tool that we're going to put in our toolbox from that group. And so that's a pretty good place to be when you're the boss, because all I have to do is just get out of the way and let them do it. So very little of my time is spent actually running the fire department. I kind of look at what we need as equipment, I take people's advice, and then I go get the money and the funding for it, and then we go move forward. But
well, and Council Bluffs is like any other community, that we have strengths, we have weaknesses, we have things that we need to work on. And it's one thing to try to find a solution to problems, but it's another thing to completely identify what the problem is. And do you think, where are we at with that? Do you think that we have a pretty good grasp on the things that we need to work on?
Yeah, I think city staff understands some of the city's biggest issues. Funding is always a problem. I mean, police and firefighters are the most expensive employees the city has. One, because they get hurt. Two, it's kind of a young person game. I mean, and so how we fund their positions and how we maintain that in the future with all the stuff that's going on at the state level can be difficult, and it gets a little sporadic, to be honest, because the state's constantly jumping around on how they want to handle property taxes. And really, property taxes are the thing that fund public safety, general government, and in general government, I say the people of City Hall and our parks. That's really it. I mean, that's when you pay property taxes, that's all you're paying for, to the city. And so I think we have an understanding of why the city has always kind of struggled and kind of just chugged along. I mean, if you think about what's happened over in just my career, or the last 30 years in the city, think about how much different it really is. I often hear people, Council Bluffs is so Crap, that's so far from the truth, man. Because when I first got hired on the fire department, I used to drive past multiple empty buildings in downtown. My brother always tells the story about all the empty gas stations we used to drive past as we came into town past Kmart. And then over the hill, there was another empty. At the top of the hill, there was a gas station. There was one that was empty. There's like 3 or 4 empty gas stations before I even got to work. And so we were in a completely different place. We're in a pretty good place in the city now. We just have to learn to, I think, sometimes get out of our own way and take advantage of what we have and use that to really help our citizens in the long run.
I have been a fan since you see different areas of town getting revitalized, and when something goes in, to me, it's going in correctly. Mm-hmm. You know, you could take what's going on down at River's Edge and lift that up and drop it into any metropolitan community in the country, and it would fit. Mm-hmm. You know, you look at what has happened with Pace and just how wonderful a facility that is. You look at the Cohen Building being revitalized and brought back, and all of these things that are going on. Things are happening. However, we still seem to be kind of stagnant when it comes to population and getting any real true growth. And we've got some new housing developments going in, but housing is a huge issue in town.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of things that are going good. I was in the mayor's office this morning after the council meeting last night saying, we're doing a really crappy job of selling where we're at. Mm-hmm. And I actually challenged them to try to put together something on our website that shows all the projects in the queue right now. The First Avenue corridor is going to be beautiful when it's done. I don't think people, I talked about it last night, but the building that's going up right now on 30th, I think it is, you see it coming out of the ground. It's a 4-story. It's basically going to be a square city block of new redevelopment. And there's 4 or 5 other projects on that corridor that are just getting ready to fire up. That one project will create $28 million in taxable evaluation. $28 million on a single city block. And the reason that's important is it's on the same square block as in another part of town, what is 26 houses. Okay, and I did some math last night, but on 26 houses, let's say that's typically 26 to 28 is what's on a city square block. If we say those houses are assessed at, let's say, $180,000 a piece, and there's 3 people that live in each house on average, so you got 74 people or 78 people, you got $4.7 million in taxable evaluation. And the length of street and sewer around that is the exact same as a project that is $28 million in taxable evaluation. Same length of sewer, same length of streets. And that, we need to find a way to explain that to the average citizen, why the West End is not very dense. The whole city is not very dense. Yeah. I talked about it in the past, but everyone really needs to realize that we're more of a town than a city right now. The problem is we're having expenses that are city expenses, and we have the funding of a town. And so without density in some area, we're going to really struggle in the future. We're going to really struggle to get over the hill on our infrastructure. I talked to Matt Cox yesterday from Public Works. We have 314 miles of city streets. 314 miles. And so they did a study, Public Works did, and they found that if they were going to bring every street up to very good condition, it would cost $360 million, okay? In that study, they also looked at our storm sewer and our sanitary sewer. It needs about $600 million put into expansion and redoing our current storm sewer and sanitary sewers to the tune of $600 million. So you got $1 billion. You know how much revenue the city has to throw at that annually?
It's a lot less than $1 billion.
It's anywhere, I think we program about $9 million a year, and there's probably 20 that could be thrown at it, but they have to save some for big projects that maybe cost 50 or 60 million. So you're really only, let's say you're throwing $20 million a year at $1 billion problem, and every day you wait to do it, your streets and your sewers get more behind. And so that's an issue. I don't know how to fix it other than put a lot of taxable valuation in a very small footprint. and we're doing it. I don't want. There was a lot of people talking about the river's edge and the Dodge Park development, saying, this doesn't need to be done. Whatever. I get that. I understand some of their concerns, but we are starting to get density in certain areas. We're going to need a whole bunch of it in some geographical area, to be able to afford us going. That's why when I hear people complain about streets and sewers, and I completely get it. I live in it. Like I understand when we get an inch of rain in a half an hour, we got a problem on the West End in certain areas. We know exactly what intersections those are. The reason we haven't been able to fix that is, let's say that's 20 blocks of either let's say the floodgates are closed, which starts to happen around 19 feet on the river. If we got 20 blocks and we don't have enough capacity to pump that fast enough, we're going to have street level flooding. And the only way to fix it is big infrastructure investment. And I think some people, maybe we don't do a good job of articulating how expensive that is. That doesn't even include, that $1 billion doesn't even include like the issues with Indian Creek. I mean, you can drive down, anyone can go down North Broadway, get out of your car and look at Indian Creek. That was built in the 40s and late 30s, early 40s. It's a huge issue. It's like another sleeping giant waiting. We just put $50 million into our levee system, our federal levee system. They think that, Indian Creek, to redo it, the box culvert basically, will cost anywhere between 100 and 200 million. And that, we got to find a way to do it, because during the 2019 big rainstorms where we had all the flooding in the spring, we floated panels out of that creek inside the box. The panels broke up, the floor broke up with the amount of hydraulic pressure that ran through there, and we had to go in and fix it. But that box culvert that basically closes in around Mercy Hospital and then opens back up down by like 13th and 2nd maybe, when it opens back up into a creek again, it's all box culvert in between. That box culvert is failing. And if you look at the walls of Indian Creek along North Broadway, they're starting to push and fail. It's a miracle they've made it this far, but those are city projects that we know we have to do something with in the near future. We got to find a way to fund those. And that kind of infrastructure, streets, sewers, only come from a couple funding sources. Really, road use tax, which is based on population. That's the money you pay at the pump, or everyone pays at the pump, goes to the state of Iowa, it gets returned to the city by its population. Our population is pretty stagnant. So in the last 50 years, let's say we grew 5,000 people. Well, think of the difference in price of a linear foot of concrete in the last 50 years. It's a significant change. So road use tax, so if we can put more people here in a tight area with no more added streets really, or less added streets, not adding a bunch of linear feet of new roads, we'll be better off because it'll help pay for the infrastructure that we already have. Local option sales tax is another option. We get 1 penny per dollar spent in the city goes to funding streets and sewers. And so that's an option, that's a piece of it. And then you have sewer usage fees that on sanitary, people pay sewer usage fees on that. And so that's pretty much all that pays for streets and sewers. It doesn't really have anything to do with property taxes. I don't think people understand that. The more people we have spending money in the community, the more money we'll have to build new roads and fix the infrastructure that we have. And we have some major struggles. When I first came here, I remember hearing the powers that be at the time, or the department heads and directors of public works say, we had combined sanitary and storm sewers in areas. We still probably have some. I'm not sure where, but we were having all kinds of problems because we were getting big rains and it was flooding our sanitaries too. And then we have high groundwater on the West End, and that can cause problems for sanitaries and storms because it fills it up. Then you lose capacity. So those are all issues that the city has to come up with solutions for. I don't know that we've done a great job explaining that. I think we need to do a lot better job, whether it's through town halls or meeting with groups of citizens on the West End or the East End or wherever they'll meet with us at, but we as city staff got to do a better job of explaining the issues.
Yeah, I think that, obviously, you hinted at it, that the Dodge Park development, that the city council decided not to investigate that and to do any more research into that. Is that the right location or not? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know that kind of thing, but I do know that something like that really is needed for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, so I met with all the council members about Dodge Park, and I'd say the reason I believe it's the right location is just proximity to downtown. There's a high demand to redevelop that property into housing. Probably high-end housing, to be honest with you. It wouldn't be affordable, but you'd probably see a migration up. There would be some apartments and stuff in there, but you'd see, I think, a migration of housing. It's really about adding population to the city and helping. I don't think the council's not gonna look at it. I think the council needs some more time to evaluate it, and I don't know that we had them locked in when we were talking about the actual problems and the actual trying to go find a plan. In my lifetime, that park will be redeveloped. There's no doubt in my mind, because the government really doesn't. We don't develop things. I mean, we go where the people in private sector want us to go. And there's a huge demand on the private sector to do something. They need more housing. We need more housing. It's the first time I think Brandon Garrett quoted a stat on the number of influx of people who actually come from Omaha into Council Bluffs to work actually outnumbers the people from Pot County coming into the city, the Mills County people coming to the city. That's kind of a crazy stat that there's that many people coming over from Omaha to work over here in our big employers. And so why are they doing that? So obviously that we have the jobs over here, we don't have the housing.
Right.
Or the real fear of that is, and I think that's why you saw that some of the employers talk last night, was we lose them. So they maybe get in the nursing field over here, and they're living in Omaha in an apartment, and then as soon as they can get a job over in Omaha closer to their apartment or their house, they go back over there, and we struggle to keep, employees over here. But we need to fix some stuff on housing. We got a lot of good things going though. And that's kind of my struggle. Like, I don't think we're doing a good enough job of explaining all the projects that are going on. And we're going to get there. Like, I wanted to say last night, like, in my world, I literally tell, and my employees hate hearing this probably, but I literally tell my employees, hey, every time you leave, ask yourself two questions. What's best for the citizens as a whole? What's it take to win? And I think you can apply that to anything. Like, in my world, like, losing is not an option, because that means something bad happened. And so when we leave the fire station doors, I expect my employees to go try to think about what they can do that's in the best interest of the city and the taxpayers, and then get whatever it takes to win. Call for whatever resource. One thing about firemen is they're never too big an ego to ask for help. We don't have like egos, I don't think, in that sense, where like we'll call for any resource we can get. I've called for inloaders, dump trucks, all kinds of crazy stuff. We work with tow all the time to actually perform rescues that was kind of unheard of. Like, who would use a tow truck driver to do a rescue? Well, we do it all the time. I mean, we don't care. We want to win. So it doesn't matter who actually gets the win. We're winning.
Right.
And I think we could apply that to how we do run our city. What's best for the citizens as a whole, and then what does a win look like? And we've done some winning. I just don't think we've explained it to the citizens. I mean, I think some of the developments we got going on, I think Rivers Edge Park, I know a lot of people have said on social media it's a failure. That's far from a failure. It's the apartment building down there is 100% full.
Right.
They're finishing the row houses down there. When they get done, they'll fill up. And now they have a new apartment building that's going in. I've heard people complaining about they use the parking garage to block the apartment's view. I'm not sure if that's relative, but the next apartment building will have a better view if that's what you're worried about. So there's plenty of good housing projects coming, and we got to find a way to mix what is density to help pay for the sprawl. Because if we keep going east, which is very hard to do with the topography, we'll go broke.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
Going that way, the ground isn't really suitable
No.
for that type of thing.
And everything's based on linear feet. How much taxable evaluation and population can you put on a linear feet of street? It's that simple. I mean, infrastructure, the more you sprawl, the more linear feet of infrastructure you put in to go get single family dwellings, there's not enough tax revenue there. It will tax people out of their homes because you can't do it. Because, you take a 4-acre parcel, or let's say you have a 1 acre, you have 100 homes in an area. that are on 1 acre lots, and they're all worth, $500,000. That's not comparative to putting an apartment complex on there that's worth, or density. So you have to kind of mix and match. It can't just be all one.
Right.
We have to find a way to explain to people there's got to be a little bit of both. And you have to have density in a city to help pay for urban sprawl. Otherwise, cities go broke. So.
Well, I'm very grateful for your time. I do know that from my own experience and seeing the area that I grew up in, when it comes to communities, status quo will kill a town. That's just what happens. And it happened in my hometown. It is now, I'm sure will soon be unincorporated because it's just gone that far. And that is what will happen. There can't be, you can't tread water forever.
Yeah, and one of our biggest struggles has been, and COVID, as terrible as it was, probably kind of helped. We have a huge inventory on the west end of rental. The single-family dwellings are being used as rental. And what we really need is to put a bunch of those back into owner-occupied. Now, how does that happen? I think you have to have something that draws the area. And if that's a large, development, I could go get 20 examples of what cities have done to draw people back in and to get reinvestment in those homes, to clean some of them up. It will happen. The private market will push it if we can create the draw. And that's really a kind of what is the Dodge Park. Nobody knows what that could be. I actually met with all the council members and asked them, would you trade it for anything? And everyone was like, yeah. I go, well, then let's go get that, because that's winning, right? I mean, if there's something you'll trade it for that'll be transformational to this city and help it in perpetuity, let's go get that project. If we should take the city's input, I'm sure there's plenty of people that would love to see a big project along the riverfront. It's by far the most valuable piece of property the city owns. And we can do that and still reflect the heritage. I can show you projects that have 40 or 50 acres of green space and that were golf courses that were redeveloped. To be honest, there's lots of them. I just came from Charleston, North Carolina. My daughter's playing basketball in Rock Hill, South Carolina. It's kind of on the border. And they did a big project very similar to this called Ballantine, and it's beautiful. You should look it up. It's unbelievable. And they took a golf course, they redeveloped it, they left a lot of the green areas, and actually they left a lot of the fairways and the waters. They increased the size of the lakes and made them retention. It's beautiful. A lot of green space, has a lot of density in the area, and drove a lot of commercial, like light commercial stuff. Those are the kinds of projects we really need to look at. I'm not for redeveloping Dodge Park if it doesn't change the city forever. And I think the Dodge family or General Dodge would appreciate that. The only way I'm for redeveloping it if it's the right project, and that it creates sustainable growth for a really long time and really kind of bails us out of some infrastructure issues in the long term.
Well, grateful for your time, and I know you got a busy day ahead of you yet too, but I'm thankful very much, and you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah,
I'd love to have you on.
If anyone else out there that watches the show wants to have a conversation about it, my door is always open. So I don't have any secrets. I'll tell you what I know.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
More first responder interviews still coming up later on this week. And once again, a big thank you to Chief Justin James for joining us on today's program. Do you or does someone you love need in-home care? Home Care Advocacy Network helps you maintain your own privacy in your own space while still receiving care and support with a personalized touch. Aging in place can be critical for many people. Home Care Advocacy Network can meet those needs with an understanding that assisted living is best at home. HCAN of Southwest Iowa brings the personal touch to care at home in Council Bluffs, Glenwood, Red Oak, Clarinda, and all of the surrounding communities. Visit hcan.com/Southwest Iowa to learn more. AIM Institute brings you Southwest Iowa Free Technical Training, or SWIFT, providing accelerated training for Iowans interested in a career in technology. The program is fully funded by the Charles E. Lakin Foundation, and that means that participants can register at no cost to themselves. Training are facilitated by AIM Institute instructors, taught both online and in person at multiple locations in Southwest Iowa. Visit aiminstitute.org to learn more. Thank you again, Chief James, for joining us on today's show. It was great talking with the Chief, and also more interviews coming up. And a big thank you once again to the Masons in Council Bluffs. They put the whole thing together. They even fed me, and I'm not a first responder. So we thank you so much. And Law Enforcement Day is coming up next Tuesday. So we're going to be back and doing more interviews. So I'm really looking forward to that. Don't forget, we have a live webcast of the Celebrate CB Parade is this Saturday. First and foremost, we want you at the parade because you can go to the parade, see it live, and then watch us later. That you get the best of both worlds that way. Or if you can't make it, and whether you are local or whether you are in another part of the country, maybe you have family members in another part of the country and would love to see it, well, you can see it right here where you're watching this, whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube. We're going to be live in both places, so we're looking forward to it. And thank you to Kyle Ranney from Tailslate Agency, and also to Sheila Jenkinson from the Growing Small Town Nebraska podcast for helping us out, making all of this happen, and we're really looking forward to it. My name's Todd Studer. Have a great Wednesday.